How to expertly train your hybrid workforce is it today, or basically it's about blended learning, how to mix e-learning, face-to-face training, things like that, and how to get the best of both worlds. So as Molly already said, I'm Casper Spiro. I'm the co-founder of Easygenerator and chief learning strategist. So I'm all about the vision, the product, and getting the word out. So what we're doing here today. So just to make sure we're all talking about the same things, because there are a lot of terms around where people have a different understanding. So I just want to go over some definitions first. So if I talk about instructor-led training, sometimes also referred to as ILT, it's training facilitated by an instructor. It can be either online or face-to-face in a physical setting, but the key thing is that it's one person explaining stuff to somebody else or a group of people. So instructor-led training. So a face-to-face session, as I said, then you are together in the same room in a physical setting. So that is not online session, so a training in person. With e-learning, we mean a course or a module the learner can take online, and you don't need extra guidance, so something you can do by yourself in your own time, in your own pace. Then we have a term called synchronous learning, and that is learning with a group of people at the same time, which can be the same as a face-to-face session or an instructor-led training, but it can also be something which is online, because especially with Corona, a lot of companies also move that part of their learning online, where you have sessions like we now do in Demio, but you also have like Zoom and team meeting, where a lot of people are using that to sort of move their original face-to-face physical classroom in an online fashion. So, and it's synchronous because everybody is there at the same time. So it doesn't matter if it's online or offline. It's really about being with a group of people like we are now and learning something at the same time. So asynchronous learning, for example, e-learning is an example of that. Everybody does that whenever they want, so they can click a link, open the course and take a course. So it's not that everybody has to do that at the same time. And then finally, we have blended learning, and that is for me the mix between synchronous and asynchronous learning. So a mix where you have sessions together, learning together, and sessions where you do that on an individual pace with, for example, e-learning courses. So instructor-led training, face-to-face sessions, e-learning, all lead up to synchronous and asynchronous learning. So sessions that you do together or in group or alone. And all of that gives you a mix, and that is blended learning. So that's what we're talking about today. So after setting those definitions, let's go into the more exciting stuff. So dive into the synchronous versus asynchronous part. So what is that? So as I said, synchronous is all about being together at the same time. So it can be online like we're now, or it can be face-to-face in a physical setting in a classroom or in a training environment. So all that is synchronous learning. So asynchronous learning are way, way more. I just put a few examples. So of course, e-learning with an e-learning course is one, but you can also record a video. For example, if we would record, we are recording this session, and if you share it with your fellow workers and they look at it later, then basically they are in an asynchronous learning mode. Online assessments, ebook, podcasts, search engines, blogs, you name it. Everything that you can do at your own convenience, in your own time, is basically asynchronous because you do it by yourself. So synchronous versus asynchronous, very important here. By the way, if you want to know more, if you want to know more, we have an ebook on that. So we will actually share that link with you later on, so you can read more about this in detail. Another thing that is an element of blended learning, it's mixing the face-to-face, the actual classroom setting versus the online learning, the e-learning session. And really important to sort of understand what the strengths and weaknesses are, because I really believe that it's not that one is better than the other. I think both of them have their strengths and weaknesses, and if you mix them in a proper way, you will get the best outcome. So in some cases, e-learning is better, in some cases, face-to-face better, but most of the time, the mix of the two will give you the best results. So some things that are like weaknesses for face-to-face settings is it's hard to measure the results because you have to come up with exams, you have to to review those exams and score them. So, and all that, it's very time consuming, but also you have to be together at the same time, the same location, which means you have to travel to one location, which is more and more an issue. People are still working for a large part remote. So for example, I'm working today from home as well. And bringing people together at the same time, the same location will cost a lot of time, but also it's very expensive. It's way harder to organize, to get people together at the same time. And knowledge transfer, retention, it's also not perfect. So we'll talk a bit about that later, but learning is not a one-time event. You have to spread it out over time. And if you have one face-to-face session, you can do part of the learning, but you can't really work at the retention. I will explain a bit more. E-learning itself also has its weaknesses. So for example, I originally was a teacher myself, and if you are teaching something in a class and you sort of you notice that people do not understand it, or you see students dropping off or doing something else, you can actually adapt to that. You can change, you can react to that. You can maybe even change the process that you're in, or change actually the content or the form or the shape that you are learning in. You can't do that with e-learning. With e-learning, it's there, you take it and you just have to consume what's there. So it is not that adaptive. But by the way, there are some programs that claim that they are adaptive, and basically then on one learning result, they will give you another one. And in practice, that is really hard to organize. And that is really one of the strengths, of course. So you also the adaptivity as a face-to-face strength, one of the strengths of face-to-face learning, that you as a trainer are there face-to-face, you can see the response of people and can react to that and can adapt your program on that. So you see also, by the way, the social interaction, of course, really important there. It's a weakness in e-learning and it's a strength of face-to-face sessions. And in general, face-to-face is better to train skills. So if you have to apply things, it's easier. If you want to do a role play, you can do that way easier face-to-face than you can do it with e-learning. So skill training, it is not impossible with e-learning, but the easiest way to use e-learning is for the knowledge part very often of the learning, and for the skills part, face-to-face is probably the better direction. So also, if we look at the e-learning strength, so a couple of the things are sort of the opposed to the weaknesses of face-to-face, like it's easier to measure results. So people, for example, in the Easygenerator course, your questions are built in, they give an answer, and it's tracked and traced automatically. You don't have to do anything, you just see those results. And with that, it's less time consuming for you as a teacher, but also for the students, because they don't have to go anywhere. They just click a link and are there. So it's easy to, as you saw for this session, for example, to have people in different times and location, time zones and locations. It's lower cost, easy to organize. Everybody can learn on their own pace, which is also important. If you are sort of, you always have people who are faster and other people who are slower, people who may want to read something twice and other ones with one glance, they already understand it. So with e-learning, you can do that, and it's stronger for knowledge transfer and retention. So I want to dive in that a bit. So the guy on the screen is Mr. Ebbinghaus. He was a psychologist from the 1800s. And he actually came up with the forgetting curve, which is the image on the right in, I believe, 1885 or something like that. And what he found is that it's quite easy to learn something pretty fast. So if you go into a classroom session or a webinar like this, you get a lot of information. And it's easy to absorb a lot of that information. So your learning curve goes up pretty fast. So that's, for example, what you see here in the orange line. The problem that you have is you also have the lines dropping. So those are the lines going down. And that is called the forgetting curve. So if you start on 0, so you can get up to here with one training, and then you go over there and you forget like 90% of what you've learned. And that is because the way the brain is constructed, you have a long-term memory and a short-term memory, and you just remember things for seconds, and there needs to be a trigger to sort of store it in your permanent long-term memory. And the triggers can be for a variety of things. For example, if something's really emotional or really beautiful, or something that really hits your mind, so that's something that will stick in your mind. But the most easy way to actually learn something is to repeat it over and over and over again. It's the way how you learned the tables when you were in the primary school. And with corporate learning, it's no different. So if that's also what I said, learning is not a one-time event. So that's also why the combination between e-learning and face-to-face training is so powerful, because you can make with a face-to-face training, you can make a big boost in learning, but you need to follow it up. You need to repeat things and maybe send out a video and repeat it. Maybe send out an assessment, doing a short recap in a course after 3 weeks or something. So people again have to process the information, again go over that, and the more they sort of have to process the same information, the higher the chances are that you actually will retain that in your long-term memory. So beating the forgetting curve is one of the really important things, and having retention is the only way that you really can use that, can achieve that, is by repetition. So I already said that you should spread out things over time, and this is, I think, a beautiful example of blended learning, which is called the flipped classroom. And it's an approach which was basically created by a teacher. So what he found, if he was giving a lecture to his students and explaining a piece of theory and then sent them home for their homework, a lot of them would get stuck at home. And he wasn't there to help them out. So they would come back the next day into the class and they didn't finish their homework because they got stuck. So he thought, let's turn it around. So what he did, he just created a small video of his lecture and asked the students to watch this video before the classroom. And then in the classroom, they actually had to make their homework. And when they got stuck, he was there to help them out. So that's why it's called a flipped classroom, because you switch the lecture and the homework from location. And that approach proved to be very, very powerful. Because what you can do in that case is, for example, if you look at an event that you want to organize or a learning track you want to organize, as I said, it shouldn't be a one-time thing because of the retention. You want to spread it out over time. You want people to work on that a couple of times. Using an e-learning course in preparation of a face-to-face meeting is very powerful. If you put the knowledge part into a course and ask people to take that knowledge part before they come into the classroom or before they come into the face-to-face training or whatever activity you have, that have a couple of advantages. Everybody can take that in the same time, or in their own time, at their own pace, and everybody will be prepared for the session. Everybody will be on the same level of knowledge because everybody consumed the course. So when you are together in a synchronous setting, you can then work on the application of that. So that's sort of like the equivalent of homework. So for example, if it's a sales training, then you start doing role plays on how to actually sell the software or the product or whatever you have using the information you got from the course. But if you don't learn how to apply it, there's no real business value. So, and mixing the preparation course with the face-to-face synchronous session makes it really, really powerful, because then you have best of both worlds, as I said, because you have the advantage of the knowledge sharing in the e-learning and the advantage of the, how to apply it, the skill training in the synchronous session. And the other thing then after that, e-learning comes back because you can, as I said, after a week or so, you can send a reminder. So here's a video with a small recap, or here's another course with an overview, or here is like an assessment with 10 questions. And if they answer it incorrect, they will get explanation on what the proper answer is, so they will learn it again. And you can even repeat that more often. But this combination of preparation, asynchronous, then synchronous application, and then the repetition and spreading it out over time again with e-learning is really powerful. And you can repeat it, of course, if you have a number of cycles to do. And that is a really powerful concept. So flipped classroom is one of my favorite blended learning models. But it's just one. So you have like tons of options there. So I just listed here a couple of things that are like considered to be asynchronous and a couple of things that are considered to be synchronous. And basically you can sort of pick and choose from them. So you can blend them together any way you want and create a program that fits your needs and fits the need of your learners. So things like online modules, self-paced learning, it's e-learning, it's asynchronous, but also references, resources, repositories for audio and video presentations, interactive exercises, animation, game simulations, all those kind of things, assessments, weekly forums, you name it, all kind of information that you can take by yourself is the asynchronous part. The synchronous part, and we talk about virtual classroom. You can also maybe talk about a face-to-face classroom, of course, so a physical classroom. You can have like practice sessions to apply the knowledge. You can give people guidance or mentoring after that. So once they learn something with you, you can actually observe them on how they apply that in their work, or maybe ask their manager to do that for you. You can collaborate with them, so the learning continues once they're at the workplace. You can do online assessments while you're in the classroom, making use of the advantage of the asynchronous part, but people just take the assessment in the class, but do it online, so you have the result directly. You can get feedback during the live session, all those kind of things, whiteboards, Q&A sessions, all these things are synchronous e-learning. So for a part, they can be online, for a part, they can be offline, or they can also be a mix. But if you just pick and choose from this and come up with your own program, it's really powerful. Really important is, with the forgetting curve in mind, hope you didn't forget about it, to spread it out over time and make sure that learning is not a one-time event, and make use of the blended approach with the power of e-learning or online learning and the power of the face-to-face sessions. So if you mix that all up, you will probably find that you will get like a flow which will repeating. I already said so. With the flipped classroom, you actually will get you can repeat that over time if you have more elements that you want to do like that. But what you see is sort of, there are like 5 elements that you can sort of see if you look at it in a bit more detail. We have the pre-learning, like with the flipped classroom. So a course you take before the actual meeting, the synchronous meeting. Then the core learning, the session where you learn together at the same time in the same place, either online or offline. Then you have the post-learning, where you have the repetition with courses, with micro-learnings, with quizzes to make sure that the knowledge is retained. You have the assessment to check the results. By the way, also a way to do retention. Maybe follow up with extra informations, more in-depth information, extra videos, updates, recaps, repetitions, whatever you want. And then you go into the next step. So pre-learning of the next phase, and then you have this cycle again. And with this and the mix that I just showed you with all the elements that you have to your availability, you have like a really great and powerful way to go there. So just a couple of overviews why you should consider blended online learning. So it will give you more autonomy and flexibility. So it will give you like people can, as I said before, learn at their own pace, at their own time, wherever, whenever, using any device they want. So you have like incredible flexibility. Also with the approach, you can really make sure that you simplify the learning. So you have like a course which is really focused on knowledge sharing. You can have really clear step-by-step instructions, but you can also use the face-to-face session, the synchronous session, to do more like the skills-based training. So you can simplify it because you sort of spread things out. You have more agility, you make best use of the time, so you do online what you can do online, and the physical meetings, but we see more and more that people after COVID are now, let's go back and meet face to face, but also just think about it, just don't move completely back to your old school approach where you did everything offline or in a synchronous session. Mixing them up is really give you more agility. It also gives you the opportunity to revisit, because if you do an online training, you can constantly improve that, and that's easier than improving a face-to-face session. You can use very different kind of formats, micro-learning, e-learning courses, video updates, face-to-face session, and mixing that around makes it more interesting and more appealing for the learner. And as I said, with blended learning, so for example, the flipped classroom as an example, you will get a higher level of learning. So you have a part focused on knowledge transfer, but also a part of the application. And again, without applying the knowledge, there's no value in a training in a corporate environment. So that is really crucial. So a couple of reasons why you should consider that. So another thing that I just want to go over quickly is we teach soft skills in a classroom. So how can we replicate that in a digital environment? With other words, is soft skills or skills by itself only training that, is that only possible in a face-to-face synchronous session? And the answer is no. So I think there's an advantage in doing that. Doing face-to-face role play is different than doing that online, for example. But there are things that you can also embed into an e-learning course that are really powerful. So, for example, you have things like a simulation, so where people are sort of placed into a real life environment and they have to make choices. And Branch Scenario is really close to that. So basically, you have a situation, you need to make a choice, and based on the choice, you get into a next theme of that. And with that, you can really sort of understand how it works. And you can, for example, practice soft skill. For example, if you do a telephone conversation and you have to choose between answer A, B, and C, and you choose a certain answer, and there's a certain response in that case from the person on the other side, you will actually be practicing those skills. But also you can ask people to analyze a case. And one thing that I like probably most is the power of stories. So if you tell a story, it's not only a really powerful way of giving people insight, of giving people understand how a skill is embedded in more context, but it's also a great way, if you have a compelling story, it's something that will actually help people to remember that easier. So I think that stories might be the most powerful way of teaching soft skills in an online environment. So, and then finally, this one that I want quickly to go over, it's a bit more enhanced, but what you see here is basically the cone of learning, where the level of learning goes from top to bottom. So at the top, the learning is really simple. So if you just read, so you probably only remember 10% of what you read. And after that, you can define it, list it, or scribe it. So it's like a limited amount of things you can do. The same with hearing. And then it goes down, so when you view things, watch things, when you have a demonstration, when you participate in something, or et cetera, you go deeper and deeper to higher levels of learning. And there's also the green part here is like passive learning, and the orange part is active learning. So very often people say, and that's the connection with blended learning, that the green part is probably best for an online asynchronous version. While the orange is best for an offline experience, so face-to-face, but it's not completely true. So I just want to point to you, if you really think about it, you could probably use every phase, both online and offline. So for example, the highest level of learning is to design or perform a presentation. Well, with Easygenerator, you can create content. So if you are an expert and you can create a course on the topic, you will learn a lot from that. It is not only that you are then creating content for your peers, it's also for you the highest level of learning that you actually achieve there. So although this is like a division which is like green online, orange offline, at the same time, it's something that you can mix together if you just want to challenge it. And we learned that through COVID, because basically, well, as you know, we were not allowed in classrooms anymore face-to-face, so we had to come up with solutions, and we found really, really interesting solutions, and sometimes they even work better than the original face-to-face ones. So just for you, for your context. But then the question is, how can you actually create that kind of content in Easygenerator? So we will have a demo now done by my colleague Farhan. But also, if you want to have like a more personal demo and want to take somebody through and answer your specific questions, there will be a pop-up before and after the demo where you can actually subscribe to that. So you can make an appointment with a specialist that will take you through Easygenerator and see how that would apply in your situation. But for now, we will move to the online demo, and Farhan will take that over from me.
Awesome. Thank you, Casper. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So I will just be taking you through a 15-minute demo just to showcase the critical features and elements of our tool. To start off, I wanted to show you what a typical course looks like on Easygenerator. So this is one of the templates that we have available on our tool for the sales training. So whenever your learner goes into a course to learn, this is how they will see it. So on the top, you will have your logo, you have the title of the course, and you have the introduction that you've added in for the course. Here on the right side, you have different sections, and when you click on a section, you get taken into it. At the top, you will ideally have your learning objective. Then you will have your content pages, and you can also add in your questions. Now I will just jump into our tool to show you how to actually build one of them. So as you can see over here, we're cloud-based, live.easygenerator.com. This means, of course, that you do not need to download a separate desktop software. Plus, it makes collaboration between your different authors much more easier. To build out a course, all you essentially need to do is just click on New Course here. And you have three options that come up. So the first one is to build a course from scratch. The second is to choose one of our many templates that we have available on many different topics from our database. The third is to use an existing PowerPoint that you may have, which you have already built a presentation on, and you use that to maybe train your employees. You can just import that directly into our tool, move around a couple of elements, add interactivity, and use that as a fully functional course. For the purpose of this demo, I will build a course from scratch. So I will just click here. I'll build something out on our name just to make it easier. So for example, Easygenerator onboarding. For every course, you can also add in tags. So for example, this course is in English, so I add that as a tag in. And then this is an onboarding course, so I can add in new hires. The purpose of these tags is, of course, it makes it easier for you to search for the course using these tags later. It also makes it easier to organize the different courses in your page. So once I jump into create course, just give me a moment, please. So there we are. So when you jump into building a course, this is the typical layout that you will see. As you can see on the top, we have 5 different steps. So this is essentially the course creation process. Most people will spend over 90% of the time in the first part. What we do support organizations with is by setting up their design aspect and their configuration, which I will discuss later, so that your authors or your course creators don't need to spend any time thinking about that. For the course creation aspect, just give me a second. Yeah, so for the course creation aspect, it's as easy as just dragging and dropping. So you can just drag and drop a section and you're ready to go. So let's name the new section and let's call that organization structure. There we are. Once you've done that, you will see something pops up over here called the learning objective. So this is essentially what your learners can hope to achieve or gain from this specific section. So when you click on that, you have the opportunity to, of course, copy and paste information in. So if you're used to having building learning objectives by yourself, or you have existing ones, you can just copy paste it in. For a lot of people who have no previous experience, we have added in a learning objective maker. When you click on that, you essentially get guided step by step on how to build an effective learning objective. So in this instance, let's start off with who is the learner. So because this is an onboarding course, the learners would be new hires, for example. Then you click next. Over here, we have different levels of knowledge that learners can expect to obtain when completing a course. This is based on Bloom's taxonomy, and it's structured by easiest to most difficult levels of learning. So for an onboarding, it would be more of a simple training course. So we can jump into understanding, and we can choose describe. So new hires will be able to describe. Then you go to next, and then you choose the task that the learner has to be able to describe. So for example, you put in organizational structure. And then finally, you have to choose the condition. The condition can be time-based. It can be many different options. So we can go with time-based. So within 7 days of joining. Once you click next, your learning objective is ready and you can use that. You, of course, have the option to manually go in and make any changes over here if you feel the need to. Once that is ready, all you need to do then is start dragging and dropping elements from the left side. So a lot of the information that you put in will be content, of course. So all the content goes into this content page. Everything, your videos, your images, your text will go into the content page. And then we have 10 different types of questions on the left side. So whichever you choose, which you feel will be most effective for this course, you can just drag and drop it. A best practice that we do notice from a lot of our clients is that they add in the questions first, because once they've added in the question, it makes it easier to understand what kind of content do they need to put in there to answer the questions they've added in, and to make sure that the learner actually learns from the course without being overwhelmed with too much information. So I've added in a single choice question and a content page. To show you how to build a content page, I will just open it. You go in. You can, of course, change the heading on the top. So let's add in hierarchy. And then on the left, you have all the different elements that you can drag and drop. So for example, you can choose from different types of text boxes. You can choose different types of images, videos, and interactive elements as well, like flip cards. So for now, I will add in 2 text blocks. Once you drag it and drop it, you can go in and you can edit the information as you please. And then I will drag and drop a text box with an image as well, just to show you the different types of layouts that we have. In the first quarter of this year, we added in a new feature, which is called the stock image library. What this, of course, does is it gives the creators access to over 1 million images free of cost, inclusive of your Easygenerator license. And when you click on the image, you can see the option here. So instead of going and searching for images, downloading them, and then uploading them again, you can just jump in here and you can choose something. So let me search for this, and I hope something comes up. Nothing. Okay. Organization. So then I will use something a little bit more generic. There we go. So once you've chosen it, you of course have the opportunity to move it around, edit it, and make it fit as you please. I will just go ahead and I will click on done. And once that has been added, you can continue adding in other text boxes, media, interactive elements, whatever you think would work best for your course. On the top, you also have the option to add a voiceover. So you can add a voiceover for each content page. So when you upload that and the learner reaches the specific page, the audio automatically starts playing. Once you've built out a content page, another best practice is, of course, to go in and preview the page before you finalize it. So to do that, you just click on preview on the top. And once the content page loads, you can see what it would look like for a learner on their end. Plus, you also have the opportunity to see what it would look like on different devices. So over here, we have a tablet view. So you can scroll down and see what it would look like for a learner who is completing the training on a tablet. So this is portrait mode. This is landscape mode. And similarly, you have the same option for mobile devices as well, because a lot of information nowadays is consumed on mobiles. Once you are happy with this, you can close this and you can jump back. You can continue to make changes, or you can just close this. Everything gets saved in real time, so you don't need to save anything. It will save as you go. One thing I forgot to mention, if you have any questions about my demo, of course, please feel free to add them in the chat. One of my colleagues will reply. Otherwise, once I'm done with the demo, I will reply to them as well. So once the content page is ready, you can If you have built a question earlier, well and good, but I'll just show you how a single choice question works. So for example, you can add in who is our CEO, and then you can list down the question here. So you can add in, for example, Jack, or you can add in Jeff. And you can choose whichever answer is the correct one, so that when the learner chooses the correct answer, it of course gives him the appropriate feedback. And then once you go down, you can add in a response for that's correct or that's incorrect. So the learner can get feedback. You can always, of course, leave it blank like this, so they will get this automated text. But you can always go ahead also then customize it. One thing that I like to do is use GIFs when I'm giving feedback to learners. So for example, you drag and drop an image with the text box, and you can then edit this the same way that you have edited all the content. In the image box, you can go ahead, you can upload something from your computer or your laptop, or you can choose something which has been previously uploaded. So I will go ahead and I will choose something which has been previously uploaded. So I'm just scrolling down, and just give me a moment. There we are. Perfect. So I will show you what this looks like in the preview mode again. So when you jump into preview, you will see what it looks like from the learner's perspective. You have the question on top, which is who is our CEO, and then you can choose the appropriate response. So for example, Jeff is the CEO, you submit it, and you get feedback accordingly. And you have a very happy Will Smith over here who is excited that you've chosen the right response. Now we will just jump back in. So you have essentially built out your training course. It's as simple as that. You can just keep dragging and dropping elements and adding to it. One more value add-on that we have is the ability to add in co-authors. This helps with collaboration between team members. It helps with easier knowledge sharing in your organization. And it also enables you to add people who might be interested in auditing your course, but not necessarily contributing information to it. So you just click on the button here, and you add in the person's email address. So for example, I add in Casper@easygenerator.com, and I click add co-author. Casper will receive a notification. He can then jump in. He can either build the course together with me, or he can review the course and he can leave me feedback. He can leave feedback by clicking on these little bubbles over here on the right. So he can click here and he can say, at Farhan, the organizational chart used is old. Organizational chart, etc., etc. And then when he posts a comment, I will receive a notification. Oh, okay, I haven't received the notification because I'm the one who put it in. But essentially, the other author will receive a notification saying that someone has left feedback. You can go in and you can have a look at it. This way, you can also get people to add in information into specific areas. You can get them to edit it and collaborate together. One more thing on this page is, of course, the chat option. This gives you access to our live chat. So we don't work with any bots. Our team works 22 hours a day, 5 days a week at the moment. We're soon going to be moving to a 24 hours a day, 5 days a week model. Whenever you're stuck, you have any questions, you can just click on send us a message, and our team typically replies in 1 minute, 38 seconds. If you're searching for more in-depth information, of course, you can always click here and search for a help article. We have help articles on a lot of different topics that can help guide you on how to build out better courses as well. Now I will jump across to the design. This is where your authors can choose where they can personalize the branding of the course. In most instances, whenever anyone joins us on specific types of plans, we do build out customized branding templates for them using their branding guidelines. This, of course, helps in making sure that your courses are consistent in look and feel. And it makes it easier for the course creation process for your authors. So once you come on board, we will build out the training, the design template for you, and we will upload it to your organization. Similarly, of course, we also do something for the configuration settings, where we will set up default settings for the majority of your courses. In this section, you can customize elements like the ability to set up surveys, the ability to set up certificates, your minimum passing score, etc. And in language, you also have the ability to export XLIF files, which is essentially your entire course, and you can get that completely translated and add it in as a new course. And then let's jump across to publish. So in publish, so I had mentioned the adding in people as a co-author so they can audit your course. For auditing purposes, we also have another option, which is shared review link. You can send this review link to people whom you do not want to edit your course, but you would like to get feedback from. You send them the link, they can go in and they can leave feedback in similar chat bubbles as the ones I showed you earlier. And whenever they do that, you receive that feedback, you receive the notification, and then you make the decision whether it's usable information or not. When you need to actually publish the course, we have a couple of different options. You can, of course, publish it directly to an existing LMS that you might have in your organization by downloading a SCORM package, or you can integrate with your LXP. Currently, we support integration with Edcast. One option for a lot of organizations who don't have an LMS is the ability to share a private link. So once you build out your course, you can share a private link directly with your learners so they can access the course on Easygenerator. Similarly, you can also download, you can obtain the HTML code, which you can embed into your SharePoint or any other intranet that you have. And lastly, we have our results. So when you jump into results, once learners start taking courses, the admins in the tool or the owners of the courses can start seeing their feedback or how they have performed on the course, if that's something that you choose to leave on. And I'll show you what that looks like. So you get a macro overview and a micro overview, so more in-depth information. From a macro perspective, you can jump in, you can see the insights of specific courses. So you can see how many people have completed the courses, how many of them have passed, failed, or are in progress, and typically how long it takes to complete the course. You can also get a better understanding of how your questions are doing. So after at least 25 people have responded to your questions, you can understand whether the question might have been too difficult or too easy. So, for example, if over 90% of respondents answer the question correctly in the first try, the system will flag it as too easy, and this helps you understand maybe you want to make it a bit more challenging for people, so you can go ahead and you can tweak that. And vice versa, like if it's too difficult for learners, then you can go in and you can identify, is it the question that needs rewording? Is there content that might potentially be missing from your course? And for in-depth analytics, you can go in and you can identify how each specific learner is doing. You can see, for example, have they passed the course? Are they in progress? When did they begin the course? When did they end it? And you can also go into each question response to see how many times did they have to attempt it and what the responses were for each question. For the results, of course, you also have the ability to download them and use them as it makes sense for analytical purposes in your organization.